Where did you get that card? The question sliced through the refined air of Lux & Company. Bethany Sullivan, the store manager, loomed over the jewelry counter, her voice sharp and echoing off the marble floors. Her face was a blotchy red, a canvas of pure anger. Below her, two 8-year-old black girls looked up, their eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and fear. Bethany's fingers stabbed accusingly at the small debit card resting on the glass between them. "We told you," 8-year-old Zara said, her voice small but clear. "Our mom gave it to us. It's our card." "Don't lie to me," Bethany snapped, snatching the card from the counter. "Little girls like you don't have cards like this. Now where did you really get it? Did you take it from your mother's purse? Did you steal it?" Beside Zara, her twin sister Zira dissolved into tears. "We didn't steal anything," she sobbed. "We're trying to buy our mommy a birthday present." But Bethany wasn't listening. She crossed her arms, her lips curling into a sneer of utter contempt. "I've already called the police. You two aren't leaving this store until they arrive." "But we have money," Zara protested, her voice trembling. "The card works. We didn't do anything wrong." Bethany leaned down, her voice a venomous whisper. "Save it. I know your type." 4 words, dropped like poison. "I know your type." 2 children, 8 years old, impeccably dressed, polite, with a legitimate means to pay. But in Bethany's eyes, they were suspects, threats, criminals, all because of the color of their skin. Zira's small hands fumbled in her pocket for the pink emergency phone her mother had given her. Through her tears, she whispered into it, "I'm calling Mommy." Bethany let out a cold, mocking laugh. "Oh, please, call whoever you want. Let's see if this supposed mother of yours even shows up." She had no idea what she had just set in motion. The woman on the other end of that line wasn't just any concerned parent. She was one of the most powerful people in the state. Bethany Sullivan had no clue that she'd just racially profiled, falsely accused, and called the police on the children of the very woman who could end her career with a single phone call. And their mother, Victoria Carter, was only 10 minutes away. To understand the magnitude of the storm Bethany had just summoned, we must rewind. Zara and Zira Carter were not just any 8-year-olds. They were the daughters of Victoria Carter, the billionaire businesswoman who had single-handedly built the Lux Co retail empire and who now served as the mayor of Riverside City. The girls lived a life of unimaginable privilege, mansions, private drivers, and trust funds that could sustain them for a lifetime. But Victoria had deliberately shielded them from the public eye. No photographs, no media appearances. She gave them privacy to protect them from the dangers of her spotlight. As a result, almost no one knew what the mayor's daughters looked like. Despite their wealth, Victoria was determined to teach her daughters a lesson far more valuable than any inheritance: responsibility. When the twins turned 8, she gave each of them a debit card linked to their trust funds, not for reckless spending, but to learn about financial literacy, about making considered choices, about the value of things. Today was supposed to be a perfect lesson. Their mother's birthday was tomorrow, and Zara and Zira had spent weeks planning the perfect surprise. They had found it online. A beautiful sterling silver bracelet with a delicate heart charm. $45. Simple, elegant, meaningful. They wanted to buy it themselves, wrap it themselves, and give their mother a gift purchased with their own money, their own effort, their own love. That Saturday morning, they told their mother they were going to art class. Instead, they asked their driver, James, to drop them at the Riverside Mall. It was to be their first solo shopping trip. No nannies, no bodyguards, just 2 sisters on a mission for the woman they loved most. Zara, the elder twin by 3 minutes, was the confident one. Outspoken and bold, she wore her designer overalls with pride, her hair in 2 perfect puffs adorned with colorful, light-catching beads. Zira was quieter, more reserved, the pensive observer. She wore a lovely boutique dress, her neat braids tied with pink bows that matched her shy smile. They walked into Lux & Co's hand in hand, their eyes wide with wonder. Gleaming marble floors, glittering crystal chandeliers, and curated displays of unimaginable beauty surrounded them. This was their mother's creation, though they were too young to fully grasp the scale of what she had built. They only knew they were on a mission, but someone else was watching. From her elevated office overlooking the sales floor, Bethany Sullivan stood at a one-way window, her eyes fixed on a security monitor. At 42, she had managed this flagship store for 8 long, thankless years. Bethany was bitter. She'd been passed over for a regional manager position twice, and in her mind the reason was not her abrasive management style, but corporate politics and diversity initiatives. She blamed everyone but herself. In truth, Bethany ran her store with an iron fist and a suspicious mind. She called it protecting assets, but it was about power. The power to decide who belonged and who did not. And when she saw 2 young black girls enter her store without an adult, her mind leaped to the worst possible conclusion. She keyed her radio. "Derek, my office, now." Her assistant manager, Derek Chen, appeared moments later. At 35, he was thoughtful and decent. "What's up, Bethany?" She pointed to the monitor. "Those 2. Watch them." Derek frowned. "Bethany, they're just kids." "I don't care," she cut him off. 2 children their age alone in a store like this? Something's off. Stay close. I have a bad feeling. Derek wanted to argue, to say that her feeling was likely rooted in something other than legitimate concern, but he had a family to support. He nodded, an uncomfortable knot tightening in his stomach, and headed back to the floor. Meanwhile, Zara and Zira had reached the jewelry counter, where they were greeted by Jessica Martinez. Jessica was 24, a warm-hearted Latina who loved helping people find the perfect gift. When she saw the 2 girls approaching with such hopeful expressions, her heart melted. "Hi there, sweethearts," she said with a genuine smile. "Looking for something special?" Zara's face lit up. She showed Jessica a screenshot on her phone. "Yes, we want to buy this for our mommy's birthday. Do you have it?" Jessica's smile widened. "The sterling silver heart charm bracelet. What a beautiful choice. You 2 are the sweetest. Let me get it for you." She carefully retrieved the bracelet from the display. When Zira saw it sparkling under the lights, she gasped. "It's even prettier in person. And it's $45, Zara added proudly. "We have enough." Jessica felt a swell of warmth. This was the purest thing she had seen all week. "This is going to make your mom so happy," she said. "Would you like me to gift wrap it for you?" "Yes, please," they chirped in unison, then giggled. Zara confidently produced her small pink wallet, retrieved her debit card, and placed it on the counter. The moment was perfect. But from her office above, Bethany Sullivan saw none of the innocence. She saw what her prejudice allowed her to see. 2 black girls with a debit card they couldn't possibly own. She saw a fraudulent transaction waiting to happen. She saw a situation that required her personal intervention. With her heels clicking sharply against the marble, Bethany descended from her office like a gathering storm, ready to turn the little girl's special day into a waking nightmare. Jessica was about to process the payment when a voice cut through the air like glass. "Jessica, I need to speak with you. Now." Bethany stood behind the counter, her arms crossed, her face a cold mask. The warmth of the moment evaporated. "Of course, Ms. Sullivan," Jessica said, startled. "I was just helping these young ladies." "Now, Jessica." Jessica excused herself, but Bethany's harsh whisper was audible to everyone. "Where are their parents?" I'm not sure. They're shopping for their mother." "And you're about to process a transaction for unaccompanied minors with a debit card? Do you understand the liability?" "But Ms. Sullivan, they have the card." "I'll handle this," Bethany snapped. "Step aside." She approached the twins, her smile tight and artificial. "Hi there, girls. Where are your parents?" "Our driver dropped us off," Zara answered proudly. "We're shopping by ourselves." Bethany's smile vanished. "I see. And this card," she said, picking it up and turning it over in her fingers as if it were a forgery. "Where did you get this?" The question hung in the air, heavy with accusation. "Our mommy gave it to us," Zira said politely. "Your card," Bethany repeated, her tone dripping with disbelief. "You expect me to believe 2 8-year-olds have their own debit cards?" Zara's brow furrowed. "But we do. Mommy gave them to us to teach us about money." By now, other shoppers had begun to notice. An elderly black woman named Dorothy Washington, who had been browsing nearby, moved closer, a frown deepening on her face. Bethany pressed on.
"And where is this mother? Why isn't she here?" "We wanted to surprise her," Zira said, her voice faltering. "It's her birthday tomorrow." Bethany hummed dismissively. And how much is on this card? Enough to buy the bracelet. Zira's voice rose with frustration. At that moment, the store's sliding doors opened and another little girl who was white with blonde hair and a ponytail walked in with her teenage sister. The girl, Emma, marched right up to the counter a few feet away. Hi, she said to Jessica, pulling out her own debit card. I want to buy a necklace for my mom. Bethany's entire demeanor transformed. Her face softened into a warm, genuine smile. Her voice became syrupy sweet. Well, hello there, sweetheart. How wonderful. What a thoughtful daughter you are. Thank you, Emma beamed. I've been saving up. That is just precious, Bethany cooed. Jessica will take great care of you. Bethany didn't ask to see Emma's card, didn't question where she got it, didn't demand to know where her parents were. Jessica, deeply uncomfortable, processed the transaction without a single protest from her manager. The contrast was stark, immediate, and undeniable. Zara's voice, trembling with a child's pure sense of injustice, rang out. Why didn't you ask her where she got her card? The store fell silent. Bethany's face flushed a deep crimson. That's different. How? Zara demanded, tears welling in her eyes. We both have cards. We're both 8. How is it different? Dorothy Washington stepped forward, fire in her eyes. I'd like to know that too. I just watched you interrogate these girls like criminals, but this little white girl walks up and you treat her like a princess. Explain that. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the onlookers. Someone raised a phone and began recording. She's with her sister, Bethany stammered. And I'm with my sister, Zira cried, tears now streaming down her face. Sensing the toxic atmosphere, Emma's older sister took her hand. Come on, Em, let's go somewhere else. She gave Bethany a look of pure disgust and led her sister away. Derek, who had watched the entire exchange, felt sick. He strode forward. Bethany, the system approved the transaction. There's no issue here. But Bethany was in too deep. She had been publicly challenged. She was being recorded. And instead of backing down, she doubled down. The system can be wrong, she said sharply. I have reason to believe this card is stolen. It's not stolen, Zara shouted, her voice cracking. Jessica couldn't stay silent. Ms. Sullivan, please, they're just children. Bethany whirled on her. If you value your job, Jessica, you'll stay out of this. Jessica's mouth snapped shut, her eyes wide with fear. The circle of customers grew tighter, more phones documenting the scene. This is discrimination, someone said. Those poor babies, whispered another. Losing control, Bethany reached for the only power she had left. She grabbed her radio. Security, I need Marcus Thompson to the jewelry counter, immediately. Moments later, Marcus Thompson appeared. A 50-year-old black man who had worked mall security for 15 years, he was a grandfather to twin boys the same age as the girls. When he saw 2 terrified black children crying at the counter while a white manager towered over them, his heart sank. Ms. Sullivan? He asked, his voice carefully neutral. Marcus, I need you to detain these 2 until we can verify ownership of this card. Marcus looked from the girls' expensive clothes to their tear-streaked faces. Ma'am, they're little girls. What exactly have they done? They are attempting to use what I believe is a stolen debit card. The card was approved by your system, Marcus stated flatly, gesturing to the screen. That doesn't mean it's theirs. Derek stepped in, his voice firm. Bethany, detaining customers whose payment has been approved is against store policy. This is wrong. Are you questioning my authority, Derek? Bethany snarled. I'm questioning your judgment, he shot back. We all saw you, a customer shouted. You treated that white girl completely different. This is racism. Bethany had lost the room. She had lost her staff. She had lost all control. The store was a pressure cooker of stares and smartphones. Every camera was a silent witness, every pair of eyes an accuser. With her authority crumbling under the weight of the crowd, Bethany made the worst decision of her life. In a final, desperate act of control, she pulled out her cell phone and dialed 911. A collective gasp swept through the store. Yes, I need the police at Lux Co in the Riverside Mall, Bethany said, her voice trembling just enough to betray her panic. I have 2 unaccompanied minors here, possibly using a stolen credit card. They are refusing to cooperate. You're calling the police? Dorothy Washington's voice boomed across the marble floor, rich with disbelief. On babies? After we all just saw you let a white child walk out of here without a single question? This is insane, someone else shouted. I'm posting this everywhere, a young man declared, his phone held high like a torch. Zira's composure finally shattered. She was sobbing uncontrollably now, her small body shaking with a grief too large for her frame. Zara wrapped her arms around her twin, a tiny bastion of strength against a hostile world. But her own tears were already carving silent tracks down her cheeks. With trembling hands, Zara pulled the small pink emergency phone from her pocket, the one their mother had given them for moments just like this. I'm calling Mommy, she whispered, her voice barely audible. And Bethany Sullivan, sealed in the tomb of her own arrogance, let out a cold, mocking laugh. Go ahead, she sneered, the sound sharp and ugly. Call whoever you want. Let's see if this mother of yours even exists. Let's see how she explains where you really got that card. She had no idea what she had just unleashed. 10 minutes away, Victoria Carter's private line began to ring, and when the mayor of Riverside and the CEO of Lux Co. heard her daughter's terrified sobs on the other end of the line, the world was about to change. Here's a question for you. If you were in that store, what would you have done? Would you have spoken up for those children, or would you have remained a silent witness? Be honest with yourself, and if you want to see the exact moment Bethany Sullivan realizes she has just detonated her own life, you'll want to stay right where you are. Because when Victoria Carter walks through those doors, this manager's entire world is going to explode. Victoria Carter was in her office at City Hall, reviewing municipal budget proposals. As mayor, her days were a relentless torrent of high-stakes meetings and city-altering decisions. But the weight of public service was nothing compared to the fierce, unconditional love she held for the two little girls who were her entire world. So when her phone lit up with Zira Mobile flashing across the screen, she answered without hesitation. Hey, baby girl, she began, but the voice that answered wasn't her daughter's cheerful greeting. It was a sound that turned her blood to ice, raw, terrified sobbing. Mommy, Mommy, please come. Please. Victoria's heart stopped. She shot up from her desk, her chair flying back. Zira, baby, what is it? What happened? Where are you? She heard a fumbling sound, and then Zara's voice came through, straining for bravery but cracking with fear. Mommy, we're at the Lux store. At the mall. We tried to buy you a birthday present, but the manager said we stole our card. Mommy, she called the police on us. Victoria's world tilted on its axis. She did what? And Mommy, Zara continued, her voice breaking completely. There was another girl, a white girl, our age. She had a card just like ours, and the lady smiled at her. She let her buy things, but us, she said we were thieves. In that instant, Victoria's fear transmuted into something cold, sharp, and lethal, a fury she hadn't felt in years. Put me on speaker, she commanded, her tone shifting from concerned mother to the absolute authority of a city in a billion-dollar empire. Right now, Zara. A moment later, Victoria's voice, amplified by the small phone, filled the silent store. This is Victoria Carter. I am the mother of those two children. The sheer power in her voice made people flinch. This was not just an angry parent. This was command. I am exactly 10 minutes from your location, she continued, each word a perfectly calibrated threat. And I want everyone listening to understand me very clearly. If anyone, and I mean anyone, puts their hands on my daughters, if a single police officer so much as raises their voice to my 8-year-old children before I arrive, there will be legal, professional, and political consequences beyond anything you can possibly imagine. Bethany stammered. Ma'am, your daughters are in possession of... My daughters, Victoria's voice cut through her like shattering glass, are in possession of debit cards I gave them. Cards connected to trust funds I established for them at birth. Cards that your own system has already verified and approved. You will step away from them, you will not touch them, and you will wait for me.
Do you understand? The store was utterly silent, save for the twins' soft cries. Then, a young man in the crowd, his eyes wide, frantically tapped at his phone. Wait a second. Victoria Carter? He held his screen up to the woman beside him. That's Mayor Victoria Carter, the woman gasped, pulling out her own phone. A few seconds of furious searching, and she held it up, displaying a Forbes article. "Oh my God, she's not just the mayor, she's the CEO of Lux Co. She founded this company. It says here she's worth over $2 billion. A shocked murmur rippled through the crowd like a contagion. She called the cops on the CEO's children? In the CEO's own store? Derek Chen, a junior manager who had been watching the disaster unfold, felt a wave of nausea. His hands shook as he pulled up two websites on his tablet. On the left, the Lux Co. corporate page featuring Victoria's photo under the title Founder and Chief Executive Officer. On the right, the City of Riverside's official site, with the same woman's portrait above the title, Mayor. He walked stiffly over to Bethany and held the tablet in front of her face. "Bethany, you need to see this." Her eyes scanned the screens. The transformation was instantaneous and absolute. Every drop of color drained from her face, leaving a pale, waxy mask of horror. Her hands began to tremble violently. "No," she whispered, a desperate, strangled sound. "No, no, no." Her legs buckled, and she gripped the counter to stay upright. "This can't be happening. Derek, we have to fix this. We can fix this before she gets here. We can still—" "Fix it?" Derek's voice was hard, colder than she had ever heard it. "Bethany, there is no fixing this. Everyone here saw what you did. They saw how you treated that little white girl and how you treated them. It's on a dozen different phones, probably already all over the internet. You racially profiled the daughters of the mayor and the CEO in their mother's own store." He shook his head, his face a mask of disgust. "There is no fixing this." Bethany looked wildly around at the sea of accusing faces, at the phones all pointed at her, at the two little girls still clutching each other and crying. The walls were closing in, and then the police arrived. Officers Jake Rodriguez and Sarah Chen entered the store and immediately sensed the electric tension. A crowd of 30 people, all filming, two small, beautifully dressed black girls sobbing by a jewelry counter. Officer Chen, a mother herself, instantly knelt to their level. "Hi, sweethearts," she said gently. "What are your names?" I'm Zira," one hiccuped. "This is Zara. We're twins." "Okay, Zira and Zara. Can you tell us what happened?" Zara, ever the protector, held up her emergency phone. The lock screen was a photo of them with their mother. "That's our mommy. She's Mayor Victoria Carter. We were buying her a birthday present, but that lady said we stole our card and called you. We didn't steal anything. She let a white girl use her card, but she was mean to us." Officer Rodriguez's eyebrows shot up. He exchanged a look with his partner, then glanced at Bethany. "Your mother is Mayor Carter?" The girls nodded. "She's coming," Zira added quietly. "She said 10 minutes. That was Dorothy Washington's cue. She stepped forward, her voice ringing with the authority of a retired principal. "Officers, my name is Dorothy Washington. I witnessed this entire shameful incident." She then delivered a precise, damning account of the twins' polite behavior, the approved transaction, the starkly different treatment of the white child, and the manager's baseless accusations. "It was racial profiling," Dorothy concluded, her words clear and firm, "plain and simple, and I am far from the only person who saw it." On cue, at least 5 other people stepped forward, phones held out. "I recorded the whole thing. I have video too. I got both transactions on camera. The difference is night and day." Officer Chen stood slowly, her expression grave. She faced Bethany. "Ma'am, did you call 911 to report these children for using a credit card you merely believed was stolen?" Bethany's mouth opened and closed, but no sound emerged. "The transaction shows as approved in your system," Officer Rodriguez added, looking down at his terminal. "No fraud alert, no decline, nothing." He looked at Bethany with profound disappointment. "Ma'am, I strongly suggest you remain silent until Mayor Carter arrives, and you might want to start thinking about legal representation." Bethany looked as if she was about to faint. Just then, the glass doors at the entrance slid open with a dramatic hiss. Victoria Carter entered not like a person but like a storm. 6 feet tall in her heels, wearing an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that radiated power. Her security detail flanked her, and her chief of staff followed closely behind, tablet already active. The crowd parted for her as if by an invisible force. Her eyes swept the room, sharp and focused, until they landed on her daughters. "Zara! Zira! Mommy!" The girls broke from the counter and ran into her arms. Victoria dropped to her knees on the hard floor, heedless of her expensive suit, her reputation, or the cameras. She just wrapped her children in a fierce protective embrace. "I'm here, babies. Mommy's here. You're safe now." She pulled back, her hands moving over their faces, their arms, checking for any sign they'd been harmed. She kissed their tear-stained cheeks. "Did anyone touch you? Did anyone put their hands on you?" "No, Mommy," Zara whispered. "But she was so mean. She said we were criminals." "She let the other girl go," Zira sobbed. "Why, Mommy? Why were we different?" Victoria's eyes glistened, but she blinked the tears back. "Oh, my beautiful babies. You did nothing wrong. Not a single thing. Do you hear me?" She held them close for another long moment, a silent tableau of a mother's love that brought tears to the eyes of onlookers. Then, satisfied her daughters were physically unharmed, Victoria slowly rose to her full height. She kept a hand on each of their shoulders, grounding herself, and when she lifted her gaze, the mother was gone. In her place was the CEO, the mayor, a predator who had just found its prey. Her eyes locked onto Bethany Sullivan. Victoria's voice was quiet, yet it carried to every corner of the store with chilling clarity. "You called the police on my 8-year-old daughters for shopping in my store." It wasn't a question, it was a verdict. Dorothy Washington stepped forward again. "Mayor Carter, I saw it all." She processed a purchase for a white child, no questions asked, all smiles. "But your daughters?" She treated them like criminals from the moment they walked up. The only difference was the color of their skin. "I have it on video," another customer called out, echoed by half a dozen others. Victoria's jaw tightened. She addressed the officers. "What exactly were my daughters accused of?" Officer Rodriguez cleared his throat. "The manager reported 2 minors possibly using a stolen credit card, Mayor Carter." "A stolen card," Victoria repeated, her voice pure ice. "Despite her own system approving the transaction, despite my children being polite and well-spoken, despite them telling her repeatedly it was a gift from their mother, this woman decided that 2 little black girls couldn't possibly be legitimate customers. She decided they had to be criminals." Her gaze snapped back to Bethany. "Let me be clear about what happened here. You saw 2 well-dressed black children with a valid form of payment and you assumed guilt. You saw a white child in the same situation and you assumed innocence. The only variable was race." Bethany finally found her voice, a desperate croaking plea. "Mayor Carter, Ms. Carter, I am so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't realize they were your daughters. If I had known—" "Stop," Victoria commanded, the single word cutting through the air and silencing her instantly. "If you had known they were my daughters, let me ask you, Ms. Sullivan, if they weren't my daughters, if they were just 2 little black girls whose mother wasn't the mayor, would your behavior have been acceptable then? Would terrorizing and humiliating them have been okay, as long as they had no powerful mother to come defend them?" Bethany's mouth hung open. "Answer me," Victoria's voice cracked like a whip. "No," Bethany stammered. "No, but I was just—" "You are not sorry for what you did," Victoria stated, her voice returning to that terrifying, controlled calm. "You are sorry you got caught. You're sorry your victims turned out to have power. You're sorry there are consequences, and there is a world of difference." Someone in the crowd began to clap, and the applause quickly spread. Victoria raised a single hand, and the store fell instantly silent again. "Don't applaud yet," she said, her eyes sweeping over the onlookers. "Because what happened to my children today happens every single day to families who don't have the power to fight back. And that injustice ends now." She turned her eyes back to Bethany, and her next words were delivered with the finality of a guillotine. "Bethany Sullivan, your employment with Lux Company is terminated, effective immediately. What is the right consequence for this kind of prejudice? Is losing a job enough, or should there be more? And if you want to see how Victoria Carter uses this moment to dismantle not just a single manager but the entire system that created her, then you need to see what happens next. This is about to become a national story." Victoria's chief of staff stepped forward with the tablet. "Ma'am, I have Patricia Williams from corporate, Thomas Reed from legal, and Ellen Rodriguez from HR on the line. They've been briefed." Victoria took the tablet. "Put them on speaker." 3 voices filled the store's speakers. "Victoria, it's Patricia. We're here. What do you need?" Victoria's voice was all business. "Patricia, Thomas, Ellen, I am at our Riverside location. The store manager, Bethany Sullivan, has just racially profiled my 8-year-old daughters. She accused them of theft, interrogated them, and called the police despite their legitimate card being approved by our system. The incident has been documented by multiple witnesses. There was a sharp, collective intake of breath from the speakers. I'm pulling up the internal security footage now, said Patricia, the COO. Give me 30 seconds. The silence in the store was absolute. Oh my God, Patricia's voice returned, shaking with rage. Victoria, I'm watching it. The differential treatment. It is undeniable. It is indefensible. It's all here in high definition. Thomas Reed, the general counsel, spoke next. Ms. Sullivan, if you are present, I am formally advising you not to say another word without an attorney. This conversation is being recorded for our internal investigation and any subsequent legal proceedings. Finally, Ellen Rodriguez from HR delivered the corporate rights. A formal termination notice is being drafted and will be sent to your personal email within the hour, along with instructions regarding your final compensation and the return of company property. Bethany Sullivan, you are hereby placed on immediate administrative leave without pay, effective this moment, pending a full investigation into this incident and your conduct as a manager. The words hung in the air, sharp and final. Bethany's knees buckled. She reached out, her hand slapping against the cool surface of the counter to keep herself from falling. Her face was a mask of pure terror, the color draining from it in an instant. But Victoria Carter was not finished, not by a long shot. I want more than an investigation, Victoria said, her voice dropping to a cold, level tone. I want answers, because if this happened in my store, under my watch, then there is a systemic problem that needs to be torn out by the roots. Dorothy Washington stepped forward again, her presence radiating a quiet strength. Mayor Carter, I want to provide a formal statement. I am prepared to give sworn testimony about everything I witnessed today. This was discrimination, clear as day, and I will not let it be swept under the rug. Thank you, Mrs. Washington, Victoria said, her gratitude genuine. Your testimony will be crucial. But then, something else began to happen. Something that made the cold in Victoria's veins turn to ice. A young black woman, perhaps in her early 20s, tentatively raised her hand. Mayor Carter, I have something to say. Please, Victoria urged gently. Speak freely. The woman's voice trembled, but she found her strength. 6 months ago, I came to this store with my little brother. He's 13. We were shopping for our mom's birthday just like your daughter's. He had a gift card, and that same manager, she said, pointing a shaking finger at Bethany, followed us around the store for 30 minutes. She didn't say anything, but she watched us, like we were thieves. My brother got so uncomfortable, he started crying. We just left. I filed a complaint with corporate. Nothing ever happened. A murmur rippled through the crowd. An older Latino man spoke up next, his voice heavy with indignation. Last year, I tried to return an item with my receipt. It was a valid return, well within the time frame. This manager told me my receipt looked questionable. She refused the return and told me to leave. I also filed a complaint. I never heard back. Another voice cut through the air. My daughter, she's black, she's 16, tried to buy a dress here. She had her own debit card. This woman made her show an ID, made her prove it was her card even after it was approved. She made my child feel like a criminal in front of everyone. The stories kept coming, a torrent of suppressed pain and humiliation finally unleashed. 5, 6, 7 people, all people of color, shared their experiences, all treated with suspicion, hostility, or outright discrimination, all at this store, all under Bethany Sullivan's management. With each account, Victoria's expression grew darker, her jaw tightening. Then, Jessica Martinez, the young sales associate, stepped forward. Her voice was trembling, but her eyes were filled with a steely resolve. Mayor Carter, Miss Carter, I need to tell you something. She took a deep, shaky breath. I tried to help your daughters. They were perfect. Polite, respectful, just excited little girls. The transaction was approved, everything was fine. But then Miss Sullivan came down and ordered me to interrogate them. I told her the card was legitimate, that there was no problem. And she threatened my job. She told me if I valued my employment, I would stay out of it. Tears streamed down Jessica's face. I am so sorry. I should have done more. I should have refused, but I was so scared of losing my job and I—" "You tried," Victoria said, her voice gentle, cutting through the young woman's spiraling apology. "You tried within the power you had. That matters." And then Derek Chen stepped forward, and what he said changed everything. "Mayor Carter, there's something you need to know. Something corporate needs to hear." He held up his tablet, its screen glowing. "Over the past 2 years, I filed 4 separate, formal complaints with regional HR about Bethany Sullivan's discriminatory behavior toward customers of color." Victoria's eyes narrowed to slits. "4 complaints?" "Yes, ma'am," Derek confirmed. 4 documented incidents, with dates, times, detailed descriptions, and witness statements. He swiped on his tablet, showing the files to Victoria. September 2023, Miss Sullivan followed a black teenage boy through the store for 45 minutes, insisting he was shoplifting. October 2023, she questioned whether a Latino family's credit cards were legitimate, even after 3 of them were approved by our system. March 2024, she refused a return from an Asian customer claiming the receipt was altered. It wasn't. And just last month, July 2024, she called security on a black man in his 30s who was wearing a suit and shopping for his wife's anniversary. He was a local attorney. Derek's voice was steady, but laced with profound regret. "I documented everything. I submitted detailed reports each time. I flagged the pattern, and every single complaint was reviewed by Regional Manager Scott Morrison and marked as unsubstantiated, with no action taken." The silence that followed was deafening, thick with the weight of years of injustice. When Victoria finally spoke, her voice was dangerously quiet. Scott Morrison knew. He knew there was a documented pattern of racial discrimination, and he did nothing. Worse than nothing, Derek added grimly. He actively dismissed it. "I have the email responses. Each time I was told there wasn't enough evidence, or that Miss Sullivan's explanation was reasonable, or that the customers were being overly sensitive. One email literally told me I should focus on sales metrics instead of social issues." On the speakerphone, Thomas Reed's voice erupted, white-hot with fury. "Derek, I need you to forward all of that documentation to me immediately, right now. Scott Morrison is being placed on immediate administrative leave, effective this moment, along with his supervisor, Janet Chen, for gross negligence and failure to act on documented discrimination complaints." Patricia's voice joined in, sharp and efficient. "Victoria, I'm pulling complaint data from all 347 stores right now. If this is happening at other locations, if complaints are being systematically dismissed, then we have a cancer in this organization," Victoria finished, her voice like steel. "And we are cutting it out. All of it." She turned to the crowd, her voice ringing with an authority that commanded total attention. "I want to thank every single person who spoke up today. Mrs. Washington, and everyone who shared their experiences, everyone who recorded what happened. You made justice possible. Without you, this would have been swept under the rug, just like all the others." Her gaze found Derek. "Derek Chen, you documented discrimination when you had no obligation to do so. You filed complaints knowing it might put your career at risk. You tried to protect people. That is the kind of integrity and moral courage I want in my leadership." Derek looked utterly stunned. "Effective immediately, you are promoted to store manager of this location with full salary, benefits, and performance bonuses commensurate with that position." Derek's eyes went wide. "Mayor Carter, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll keep doing what you've been doing," Victoria said. "Say you'll keep speaking up. Say you will never look away when you see injustice." "I will," he promised, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise you I will." Victoria then turned to Jessica. "Jessica Martinez, you showed integrity today. You tried to do the right thing even when you were threatened. You are promoted to assistant manager, effective immediately." Jessica gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." And then Victoria turned to face Bethany Sullivan. Her expression was pure ice. "Bethany Sullivan, you are terminated from Lux Co, effective immediately, for gross violation of company values, discriminatory conduct, creating a hostile environment, and bringing disrepute to this organization." Bethany's face crumpled. "Please," she begged, the word a desperate sob. "Please, I have a mortgage. I need this job. I'll do anything. Training, therapy, community service, anything. Please don't do this." Thomas Reed's voice came through the speaker, cold and final as a tombstone. Ms. Sullivan, your employment contract permits immediate termination without severance for conduct that violates our core values. Given the evidence, security footage, multiple witness statements, video recordings from customers, and your documented history of dismissed complaints, you have no legal recourse. I strongly advise you not to pursue litigation, as the discovery process would be devastating to any case you might attempt to build. Bethany looked around desperately, her eyes pleading for an ally, for anyone to intervene. She found only cold stares, disgusted expressions, and a sea of phones, all still recording her downfall. Victoria held out her hand, palm up. Your badge, your store keys, and your access card, now. Bethany's hands shook so violently she could barely unpin the name badge from her blazer. She pulled the keys from her purse, keys that had represented her authority for 8 long years, and her access card. They clattered onto the counter with the definitive sound of a career ending. Please, Bethany whispered one last time, tears carving paths down her cheeks. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Victoria's voice was quiet, but it carried absolute finality. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry there were consequences. You're sorry you can't get away with it anymore. There's a difference. She paused. The exit is behind you. I suggest you use it. Bethany looked around one last time, at Derek, who met her gaze with profound disappointment, at Jessica, who looked away, at the crowd of customers, none of whom showed her a single ounce of sympathy. And then, in a silence broken only by the sharp click of her heels on the marble floor, Bethany Sullivan walked toward the exit. Every eye followed her. Every phone captured her final, humiliating walk of shame. As the automatic doors hissed shut behind her, a single person in the crowd began to clap. Within seconds, the entire store erupted in thunderous applause and cheers, but Victoria raised her hand, and silence fell instantly. Don't celebrate yet, she said, her tone firm. Firing one bigot doesn't solve the problem. This is systemic. This requires a systemic solution. She turned back to her daughters, and her voice softened, all the steel melting away. Now, my brave girls, let's finish what you came here to do. Victoria looked at Jessica. I believe my daughters were trying to make a purchase? Jessica's face, still wet with tears, lit up with a brilliant smile. Yes, absolutely. She picked up the twins' debit card, the same card that had been so scrutinized, and swiped it through the reader. It processed immediately, perfectly, just as it had the first time. Transaction approved, Jessica announced, beaming. Zara and Zira looked up at their mother, and Victoria gave them a reassuring nod. See? Your card always worked. You were always right. Jessica wrapped the bracelet in the most beautiful paper they had, silver with gold ribbons, and tied an elegant bow. She handed the gift to the twins with genuine warmth. For your amazing mom, from 2 of the bravest girls I've ever met. Victoria knelt and hugged her daughters close. Thank you, babies. This is the most precious gift I've ever received, not because of what it is, but because of what you went through to get it. You were brave. You called for help. You stood up for yourselves. I am so proud of you. She stood and addressed the crowd one final time. Thank you to every person here who spoke up, who recorded, who refused to look away. You are the reason change is possible. Never forget that your voices matter. Dorothy Washington stepped forward. Mayor Carter, what you did here today, holding this company accountable, listening to these stories, taking immediate action, that's leadership. That's justice. Victoria nodded, her own eyes glistening. Mrs. Washington, what you did, speaking up for children who weren't yours, refusing to stay silent, that's heroism. Thank you. As the crowd began to disperse, buzzing with emotion, Victoria's chief of staff approached quietly. Ma'am, the media has gotten wind of this. There are news vans outside. It's already trending. The videos are going viral. Victoria looked down at her daughters, then nodded with steely determination. Good. Let them see. Let everyone see what happened here. It's time the world knew. If you want to see what happens when this story goes viral, when Victoria Carter takes this fight from one store to a national movement, you need to stay tuned, because what happens next will inspire you, challenge you, and maybe even change how you see the world. The best part is still to come. Outside the mall, Victoria faced a wall of cameras. Today, she began, her voice clear and strong, my 8-year-old daughters went to buy their mother a birthday gift at a Lux Co store, a company I founded. The manager interrogated them, accused them of theft, and called the police. Minutes before, a white child made an identical purchase and was treated with warmth. The only difference was the color of my daughter's skin. She let that sink in. I have kept my daughters out of the public eye to protect them, but I will not be silent about this. Because if it can happen to the daughters of a CEO and a mayor, imagine what happens to families without those resources. A reporter shouted a question about her plans. The manager has been terminated, Victoria stated. We are auditing all 347 stores. Everyone involved in dismissing over 40 documented complaints from black and brown customers will face consequences. As mayor, I am proposing a fair shopping act, and I am tripling the funding for our city's Human Rights Commission. Aren't you just using your power for personal revenge? Another reporter called out. Victoria's eyes flashed. This isn't personal, it's universal. This isn't revenge, it's justice. Yes, I have power, and I intend to use every bit of it to make sure what happened to my babies doesn't keep happening to anyone else's. That evening, at home, came the question Victoria had been dreading. Mommy, why did that lady think we were bad just because we're brown? She pulled them close. Sweetheart, she has something called prejudice. It's a sickness in the heart that makes people judge others based on the color of their skin instead of the content of their character. It's called racism, and it is wrong. But you must always remember that you are beautiful, you are worthy, and you deserve respect. Always. Will us speaking out help other kids? Zara asked. Yes, baby, Victoria said, her voice thick with love. It already has. And she was right. Within days, the videos had over 50 million views. Justice for Zara and Zira trended worldwide. Families everywhere began sharing their own stories. Sparked by one incident, massive change began to roll out. Scott Morrison and his supervisor were terminated. All Lux Co stores implemented new protocols, from mandatory bias training to independent complaint hotlines. As mayor, Victoria passed the Fair Shopping Act. Within 3 months, discrimination complaints across the city jumped by 300%. Not because there was more of it, but because people finally believed someone would listen. 3 months later, Victoria took the twins back to the Riverside store. Derek greeted them with a warm, genuine smile. The store was transformed. Signs read, "All children welcome, all families respected." The staff was diverse, the atmosphere open and welcoming. Victoria watched as a young black boy and his father browsed the electronics, helped by an associate who treated them not with suspicion, but with respect. Her phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. All 347 stores fully compliant. Complaints down 78%. Customer satisfaction at an all-time high. Derek leaned in. Families of color tell me this is the first time they've ever felt truly comfortable here. One mother cried and thanked us, just for treating her like a normal customer. Victoria knelt before her girls. You two were so brave that day. You told your story, and because of your courage, this store is different. This city is different. You helped change the world just by being you. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share it with others. We'll see you in our next video.